Cimoooooooo.
What's going on, guys? It's Cimoooooooo. It's the end of the year, which means Banlist season is finally here, and we are starting things off with the OCG Banlist, which has officially been released for January of 2022. This means that the TCG Banlist isn't too far off. We should be getting it in January, but we should maybe get wind of it maybe a couple weeks before that. Konami says no sooner than X date, but then proceeds to release it like a week or two earlier most of the time. They've done it later in the past, but we will just have to see what happens. So let's go ahead and get into the OCG Banlist reaction, and right off the bat, you can see Fusion Destiny is now banned for the OCG. This is a very big hit, and a lot of TCG players might be thinking, damn, this card just really got good all of a sudden, and now it's going to get banned? Calm down, it's not going anywhere. Remember, it's getting reprinted as an OTS Pack Ultimate Rare, I believe in February, and so that means there's no conceivable way that Konami is going to print this card in Ultimate Rare, but ban it 1 month prior. So chill out, you're still going to get to play your Ultimate Rare Fusion Destinies for your Destroyer Phoenix Enforcers. The thing is, I actually can see this conceivably happening for us TCG players, just not on the immediate ban list. Maybe the one following or the one after that. The reason for it is that if you look around, think about all the decks that are playing Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. Like, most of the top meta decks can play it. When you have decks like Sword Soul and Phantom Knight and the Invoke deck, and realistically, most decks can just splash the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer engine in their deck just to have access to one of the format's strongest cards and a pot of greed for your troubles, right? And so I could see that becoming a bit problematic from Konami's perspective, because then every deck just starts splashing it in, and when you see that start to happen, decks start to lose a bit of their identity. Although it is a lot of fun to be able to play with a card like that, I can see why OCG Konami did this, and there's a very realistic possibility that the TCG will follow suit with this, of course, after they make all of their money on Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer and those OTS packs, of course. But let's go ahead and move on to the limits, because there should be a few of those down here as well, and it seems like it is Phantom Knight, Torn Scale, Prank Kids Meow Meow Moo, and Cross Out Designator. Now, over in the OCG, the Phantom Knight deck is actually one of the strongest decks of their format, and so it's really not a surprise to see a card as powerful as Torn Scale getting hit to 1, considering the fact that Torn Scale is just such a powerful card, being able to extend you through so many different plays. It also helps you get other cards into the graveyard, which help you extend even further beyond the fact that he can resurrect himself. Just such a strong combo enabler, and limiting it to 1, this seems like a very realistic hit, and something that, you know, maybe won't happen here in the TCG anytime soon, considering the fact that the Phantom Knight deck is very strong, but there's a lot of other problems here for us TCG players. Meow Meow Moo, for those of you who aren't familiar with the OCG's metagame as well, Brave Prank Kid is one of the strongest decks in their format. The Brave engine is something we do not currently have access to. It'll be released in the Grand Creators, which I believe actually just got delayed for the TCG. It was supposed to be legal for YCS Pasadena in the middle of January, but now we're not going to be getting that set till the end of January, I believe, and so that means it's pushed back a bit. But the Brave engine is just a powerful supplemental engine that we are seeing splash in a myriad of different strategies. Both Prank Kid as well as Phantom Knight are playing it in the OCG, and it has just made that deck very powerful, and so this is something that we already have, I believe, here in the TCG, so the OCG has finally followed suit, just in a different way. And then Crossout Designator, this is very funny, because for us TCG players, we kind of have just completely written off Crossout Designator at this point. This is a card that was incredibly hyped going into the release of the newest Megatins, but the problem is, I think it's more of a card that, because the OCG has Max C, it's more of a staple over there, because they just need to have as many ways as possible to stop Max C, because it is such an oppressive card. And so as a result, for us TCG players, it sees a moderate amount of play from time to time, but most of these top deck lists, when you actually see, they're not playing Crossout Designator, because hand traps aren't even really in the format, apart from Nibiru. Ash has sort of made its way slowly back in. We also have Imperm, I guess, as well. And while Crossout Designator is actually a very strong card, because it can hit all these other targets, even hand traps that don't discard to the graveyard, like Called by the Grave would, it's something that if you look at OCG deck lists specifically, it's just everywhere. I wanted to quickly pull up a chart for the OCG's metagame because for those of you who may not be familiar with it, it's good to just get an idea for maybe where some of these hits came from. And so again, Phantom Knight has basically been at the top of the metagame for like the past several months. And so it's no surprise to see a card like Torrent Scale got hit for that reason. And Prank Kid's been like in these wedges. So it's again, another deck that's just been looming. And again, we have Prank Kid's Cimoooooooo here limited as well. So again, not really too surprising. Just a nice card because now you just can't have multiple follow-ups with the Cimoooooooo. But if you move down here, look, there we go. There we have both Crossout Designator and Fusion Destiny. Let's move down here. Fusion Destiny, Crossout Designator. Let's go down to this list. Oh, I mean, to be fair, this is Flow Endery, so I mean, they're not really playing that. But Brave Tenyi, let's see. Fusion, well, this one's actually just a pure variant. This is actually one that's playing the Brave engine, as a matter of fact. But again, Crossout Designator. When you look at a lot of these different deck lists, there's just Crossout Designator as a 2-of in every single one of them. And just to prevent decks just from becoming very one note, Konami has a tendency to try to hit these types of cards. And so I think it's definitely justified. And now you guys get a better picture of what the metagame looks like and why they're hitting some of these decks. A lot of it does sort of correlate to the TCG as well, even though our format is vastly different, but just something else to keep in mind. We have a much more combo-oriented format because we don't have Max C, so a lot of these other bigger, more higher ceiling decks are able to go over the top. Then for the semi-limits, longtime fans of the channel know I absolutely abhor the semi-limited list. Japan loves the semi-limited list. I don't understand why, but here we go. 5 new cards being added to the semi-limited list. In my opinion, just move it to 1 or keep it at 3. Putting it to 2 really doesn't accomplish all that much. It's such a minor hit to consistency that it just seems pretty marginal at best, but here we are. So we have 2 cards that we don't have yet here in the TCG, which are Aquamancer of the Sanctuary as well as Rite of Aramesia. These are both parts of the Brave engine and are 2 of the strongest cards in that entire archetype. This is the card right here that allows you to get like a +3 essentially for activating it, and Aquamancer of the Sanctuary can be sent to the graveyard and then banished, to then you can actually just get this card as well. So it searches for the spell here, and so these are going to be 2 cards that once the Grand Creators is released here in the TCG, we're going to be seeing a lot of this. It just hasn't been released yet, and so we haven't really seen the full impact of what it can do here for us TCG players. But in the OCG, going back here, there wasn't a Prank Kids list playing it, but this list right here, 3 Aquamancer, 3 Rite of Aramesia. And then if we go up to the Phantom Knight list, 3 Aramesia, and then 3 Sanctuary, right? And then same thing for here. This is another list, Phantom Knight, 3 Aramesia, 3 Sanctuary. So again, another card that from OCG's perspective, they just wanted to semi-limit it to reduce the number of copies available. I don't know if that's the correct move necessarily, but again, the OCG loves a semi-limited list, so whatever. Altergeist Multifaker moving from limited to semi-limited, a deck that doesn't really do a whole much in the grand scheme of things, so they felt that it was okay for this card to go back to 2. Sword Soul Emergence, the Rhoda for the deck, going from unlimited to semi-limited. Once again, Sword Soul Tenyi is a very strong deck in the OCG as well, as it is here in the TCG, so just a very minor consistency hit to the deck, I don't know. And then Metaverse going from limited to semi-limited. So in the OCG, they actually have Mystic Mind banned. Thank God for that. We talked about that in the last OCG Banlist video. And so as a result, with Mystic Mind banned, it's actually sort of viable to move a card like Metaverse to semi-limited, because the biggest use for Metaverse when Mine is legal is to Metaverse on your opponent's turn, Mystic Mind on their turn, and they basically just lose the game immediately. So you're actually able to actually get more mileage out of a card like this, and it's a bit safer for it to come off the ban list. Interesting choice. And then moving on to the unlimits, which aren't necessarily the most exciting. Skullcrobat Joker going to 3. Fine, whatever. Oviraptor's another one. The OCG's had a lot of the dinosaur deck hit compared to us TCG players for quite some time, so it's very funny seeing a card like Oviraptor finally making its way off of the limited list and is now at unlimited. Will that change dinosaur's viability? We'll see. I still think they have other cards that are hit that we don't, so it's probably not going to happen. Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon is another one. This is errata though, and it's a card that is very good, but again, I think it's well past its prime at this point. We'll see. And then Scapegoat going to unlimited. That's a really cool one. We've seen in the past how powerful a card Scapegoat can be in decks like Trickstar Sky Striker and the like. The fact you just get free Link 4 material and then can just go off, there's a lot of cool things that control decks in particular can actually take advantage of a card like this, but I'm not necessarily sure. I think the metagame is just far too fast at this point for a card like Scapegoat to really be viable, but I don't know. We were like jamming Scapegoat Scapegoat in Goki Extra Link format, so if it was viable back then, it could still be viable now, and having it at 3 means you're going to see a lot of copies of it, so that's a nice one. We'll have to see the impact that has. Overall, though, I mean, if we're looking at the metagame, take a look at all the hits that a deck like this incurs, and, you know, you're going to start to lose a lot, right? This goes down to 2, this goes to 1, this goes to 2, this goes to 1, this is banned, so this deck now looks drastically different than it does in its current form. This deck loses 10 cards. Can this deck still function? Probably not. I think it's actually going to have to undergo a massive overhaul if it still wants to function in the slightest, but even then, I don't know if it's going to be the best option. But with a card like Fusion Destiny being banned now, I'm not really too sure if the metagame is going to stick this way. I think there's going to be a lot of volatility now, because now there's going to be a power vacuum, since now going into Verte just isn't really a viable option. And with all the hits that this deck has incurred, and Prank Kids is like another option, but again, you go down here, you know, Flanderies is still fine. The Tenyi deck did lose a little bit, but in all fairness, like the Tenyi deck losing like a copy of Emergence, and you know, this deck in particular is playing the Brave engine, but there have been plenty of more pure variants and Tenyi variants that have been doing just fine. You know, it's something that I think we're going to see a bit of a fight for the top here in the OCG, and when we look at the other possible contenders here, I mean, Drytron is another deck that's been doing quite well, same with Eldritch, the Invoke deck at the same time. There's gonna be a fight for the top for sure. But guys, that's gonna wrap it up for the OCG Banlist reaction, as well as any sort of TCG implications. Bit of an interesting list. Definitely going to check some of the problems over in the OCG for sure, and I'm curious how this is going to translate for us TCG players. Obviously, Fusion Destiny's not going to get hit, so you guys can all calm down about that. And some of these hits, when you look at it from a TCG perspective, don't really make too much sense at the current moment, because I think for us TCG players, we have a much bigger problem for several other reasons, right? We're playing several different meta decks that are attempting to just lock out the players from playing the game. The OCG did as well, but they really only had like one deck doing it in the Brave Phantom Knight deck. We have the Phantom Knight deck. We have the Invoke deck that's playing Winda and stuff. We have the Lyraless Tri-Brigade deck, which if you notice is not being played here in the slightest. There's even the Sword Soul Tenyi deck that's playing Arch Nemesis Protos to lock players out as well. Drytron's another deck that's trying to lock out the opposing players. So we have a lot of these sort of just like I win the game turn 1 sort of cards, and I think a lot of players are really just hating that that's more of a problem more than anything else. But you guys can let me know down in the comments what you guys think needs to get hit on the upcoming ban list, because I definitely think there's a big discussion there to have for sure. So guys, that's gonna wrap it up for the video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think and what you think will get hit on the next TCG ban list. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching the video, and we will see you next time.